let's talk about The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but probably not the one you're thinking of. Before we go any further, we need to get one thing straight. This is not a fairy tale. This is Victor Hugo's Gothic masterpiece, a story about obsession, cruelty, and a kind of tragedy that feels like it's carved into the very stone of the cathedral itself. So, let's step out of the light and into the shadows of 15th century Paris.
First things first, we need to shatter a few stained glass illusions. A lot of us were introduced to this story through a world of, talking gargoyles and a big hero's welcome at the end. A world where love conquers all. Yeah, let's just set that aside. In Hugo's novel, the reality is much, much harsher. The stone of Notre Dame is cold and silent. Quasimodo's one moment of heroism gets him nothing but a pariah's punishment. And in this world, love doesn't conquer a thing. In fact, it's the very thing that leads everyone to their deaths.
All right, so to really get this tragedy, you have to start with the man who is basically the living, breathing soul of the cathedral itself, Quasimodo. He's the first point in our tragic love triangle. And this quote right here, it gets to the very core of who he is. For Quasimodo, Notre Dame wasn't just some building he lived in. It was him. It was an extension of his body. The gargoyles were his family, the whole cathedral was his shell, like a tortoise. It was the only thing in the entire world that protected him from the cruelty of everyone outside.
And why did he need that shell so desperately? Well, because this is how the world saw him. Hugo's description of Quasimodo is it's brutal. There is no sugarcoating it. A tetrahedron nose, a horseshoe mouth, teeth like the battlements of a fortress. He's described almost like a piece of monstrous architecture. And that's the point. Society saw this exterior, and they immediately condemned the person inside without a single thought.
So what you have is this person in a state of profound absolute isolation. The only real conversations he ever has are with the giant bells of Notre Dame. He loved them, he cared for them, he even gave them all names. But here's the tragic irony. That love came with a terrible price. The very companions that gave his life some shred of meaning were the same things that made him deaf, building yet another wall between him and the rest of the world.
Quasimodo's isolation really sets the stage for everything that follows. Because for every tragic hero, there has to be a villain. And the villain of this story isn't some simple monster. No, he's a man of God, consumed from the inside out by a forbidden fire. We're talking about Archdeacon Claude Frollo.
Frollo is, without a doubt, one of the most complex and terrifying villains in all of literature. I mean, on the surface, this guy is a pillar of the community. He's a brilliant intellectual, a man of faith, and he even performs what seems like an act of charity by adopting the abandoned Quasimodo. But Hugo shows us that beneath that pious exterior is a soul in absolute turmoil. There's this volcano of passion deep inside him that's just waiting to erupt and burn everything down.
And this right here, this is the key to his whole worldview. Early on, Frollo carves this one single Greek word into the wall of his cell, A-N-N-K-E. It translates to fate, or doom, or necessity. Think about that for a second. This isn't just random graffiti. This is his entire philosophy. He believes he's just a puppet of destiny. By doing this, he gives himself permission to do the most horrible things, because hey, it's not his fault, right? It's just fate. It's the ultimate cop-out. And you can actually hear his torment in his own words. After he sees Esmeralda, his entire life's foundation just crumbles. He tries everything to fight this obsession. He throws himself into his faith, his books, his work. All the things that used to define him. But it's totally useless. Against this raw passion, all his years of knowledge and piety feel, in his own words, hollow. His whole world just collapses.
So, since he can't accept this darkness inside himself, what does he do? He projects it all onto her. It's a classic psychological move. He tells himself, I can't be this lustful, sinful man. Therefore, she must be a witch who has cast a spell on me. He twists his own desire into her crime, and his logic becomes this weapon. He decides the only way to cure himself of this charm is to completely destroy its source, Esmeralda herself. It's just chilling.
So this is where it all comes to a head. The collision between Quasimodo's pure, selfless love and Frollo's corrupt, all-consuming obsession. And it brings us to this absolutely shattering climax, where every single act of love just pushes everyone closer to death.
Now this is the scene everybody knows. Quasimodo swinging down from the cathedral, grabbing Esmeralda right before she's hanged and carrying her back inside while crying, "Sanctuary!" It feels like this amazing, triumphant victory. But in Hugo's world, It's not. Sanctuary isn't salvation. It's just a delay of the inevitable. The cathedral that was Quasimodo's refuge now becomes Esmeralda's prison, a gilded cage where she's safe from the law maybe, but she's trapped with Frollo's madness.
And the end is it's just one gut punch after another. It's a cascade of cruelty. Frollo comes to Esmeralda pretending he's there to save her, but he tricks her into leaving and hands her right back to the executioners. Then, in the most agonizing twist, she's briefly reunited with her own mother, who'd lost her as a baby, only to be ripped away again to be hanged. And Frollo, he watches the whole thing from the tower, and he laughs. And that's the moment Quasimodo finally sees the truth. And in this single, silent act of justice, he pushes the man who was both his savior and his tormentor right off the edge.
But even that isn't the end of the tragedy. Hugo saves the most heartbreaking image for the very last lines of the entire novel. About 2 years later, workers are in the vault where the bodies of the executed are unceremoniously dumped, and they find 2 skeletons, locked together in a final embrace. One is Esmeralda, and the other, with its crooked spine, is Quasimodo. He had found her body, crawled into the vault with her, and simply laid down to die in her arms. And when they tried to separate them, his bones just crumbled into dust.
And so that's what Hugo leaves us with, this one haunting question. In a world of corruption, of failed justice, of fatal obsession, who was the true monster of Notre Dame? Was it the man who looked like one but loved with a purity that was almost superhuman? Or was it the man who looked like a saint but was eaten alive by a demonic obsession? The novel seems to suggest that the real monsters aren't always the ones who are easy to spot. Sometimes they're the ones we're taught to respect,